Wow, wow, wow. Hull City, our Premier League. Welcome to Not the Top 20 podcast, Championship playoff final recap, sponsored by Sky Bet and the Sky Bet EFL Building Foundations Fund. Hull City 1, Middlesbrough 0. Ollie McBurney, George, unbelievable scenes for the second season in a row. The Championship playoff final decided with an injury time winner. The drama.
Yeah, it didn't feel like a goal was coming. Like any neutrals, I was there. It was hot. I think I should say the atmosphere from both sets of fans was unbelievable. I took my two nephews, who are 15 and 13, Arsenal fans. So trying to, now they've won the league, they can just come and support an EFL team. And I was aware of how it was loud. Like both sets of fans were really loud. And it was kind of like sensory overload. Like fair play to both sets who really turned up on the day. And even though the atmosphere was amazing, and you could really feel that this was two clubs who hadn't been in the Premier League for a long time, who without parachute payments knew that this was going to be their best opportunity to do it for a long time. And the game, I think in part due to the conditions, wasn't great. It was a game where Borough dominated possession. They were way more patient in possession than they normally are, I think, probably to conserve some energy, especially after what happened against Southampton. And Hull defended their box unbelievably well. And even though it was a game of few chances, the best opportunities, or at least the closest that either team came to scoring until the winner, was Hull. Hull were the better team in terms of chance creation and the better team in terms of preventing the opposition from creating much. So even though it was a game of few chances, when the goal actually came, and it came, not a massive surprise, I guess, that if you look at Middlesbrough's weaknesses this season, especially under Hellberg, there have been a few occasions where Sol Bryn's handling has not been good enough. And in this occasion, it was a Hirakawa, brilliant run down the left-hand side. Across where I'm pretty sure Bryn was trying to catch it, and instead of catching it, just parried into the path of McBurney, who steered it home with 4 minutes to go of the 8 minutes of added time and ran into the corner in front of the Hull fans. In front of the Borough fans.
In front of the Borough fans. A lot of chat about a playoff final. Jarring, to be clear. Jarring to see a goal go in and the fans behind the goal being the opposition fans. Obviously very rare, because I can't remember a single time where teams have flipped it at kickoff. And from what I understand, Hull did that. And presumably from a tactical point of view, because of the sun and so the sun in the eyes or something like that, which means their fans didn't get that moment. You can't see the limbs from the camera one. And McBurney celebrates in front of the wrong set of fans. But obviously, they'll say it worked.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was an obvious thing to do. Like walking in straight away, you could see that the shade, it was a 3:30 kickoff. The shade started halfway inside. If you're sitting in the dugout, it's the right half of the Wembley pitch. So therefore, by flipping it, it meant that A, Bryn had the sun in his eyes, and B, they would be defending their box in the shade for the first half.
Lovely.
And Middlesbrough would be in the sun, doing which I think is relatively significant. I think that's quite a big thing. Just so impressed with Hull.
Big Sergey, he's stuck with the old 3-4-3. He left Gelhardt on the bench as a result. We discussed his decision to do that. It worked in the second leg of the semi-final, and it worked again here. And it's a really nice way of being able to say about a manager who's obviously had a phenomenal season, and I would put a lot of Hull's success, well, you kind of have to look at a manager being hired to the team that stayed up on goal difference, making the top 6 and going up. You have to look at that as an incredible impact. But it's also nice to zoom in and go, even with his decisions in the most important games of their season, tactical decisions paid off and helped them win this playoffs without even conceding a goal.
Yeah, I mean, the conversation around Jurkovic, I think you can look at the regular season two different ways. There's the elephant in the room is the underlying numbers in the data, and that means that if you purely look at results, and you look at results being a proxy for managerial success, and of course he has to be one of the best. You could argue now if the awards were done today, he should probably deserve to win the Championship manager of the season. A transfer embargo in the summer, predicted by many people, including ourselves, as we'll get on to really struggle this season, and he's taken them up. But to my mind, the most impressive thing about Jurkovic, the part of his job that I've been, my kind of opinion of him has completely shifted. I watched the duration of their game against Charlton, the penultimate game of the season, and they were second best in that game. And in that match where they lost 2-1, they went from looking like they were going to be in the playoffs to finishing outside the playoffs. Since then, they played 4 games. They went 1-0 down against Norwich, and they came back and won the game 2-1. In 3 playoff games, this is a team who have conceded, the 3rd most goals in the league this season, whose underlying numbers have been poor throughout the campaign. 2 legs against Millwall, the team that finished 3rd, and then a game against Middlesbrough at Wembley, one of the best attacking teams in the league. And they were sensational. Like there's nothing lucky about this. There's nothing fortunate. You look at the games themselves. Yeah, Millwall scored a goal that was disallowed that was a bit contentious. But take that out of it because it didn't really happen because it was disallowed. Hull never really looked like conceding.
Yeah.
Like they didn't really. I don't think they conceded a big chance in any of the 3 games. Like that is unbelievable. So when it really mattered, and the opposition were there to be prepared for, albeit with the Borough situation, they had to prepare against Southampton previously. Jurkiewicz got everything spot on, from team selection, from system, from the defensive setup to the way that they could attack and transition, to the starting lineups, to the substitutions that he made, like completely faultless. And yeah, a masterclass from somebody in terms of how to manage in a playoff campaign where they were written off. Even when there were only 4 left, they were still written off. Like no team has ever gone off as big a price as they did with the bookmakers. They're a double-figure price on the exchange. Incredible.
And Ollie McBurney, it's nice, isn't it? When the guy that should be the one to send them up sends them up. And it was also nice last season when Tommy Watson, a teenager, sent Sunderland up. That was nice too. But for it to be McBurney, who, as a player, is about as talismanic as you could see, as a bloke, is a character that you want in your team and you basically hate if he plays against you. His main character energy wins the game, hits the bar with the biggest chance of the game outside of the goal. And, even I would like to make sure we bring up the fact that whenever we talk about McBurney, one of the things that we like to point out is that, yes, he's been a great goal scorer this season. And yes, he is a good target man, good in the air, good at battling with centre-backs. But he's an intelligent ball player as well. And that's what makes him a really well-rounded striker. And in the build-up to the goal, he receives a pass forward and first time plays it into the feet of, I think it was maybe Slater breaking forward from midfield. That sort of smart, intelligent football IQ to play the right pass and the ability to execute it, where a lot of big strikers struggle on that side of things. And then in the right place to pick up the pieces. And, it might look like a simple finish, but he had to react really quickly and in injury time on a hot day with his weaker foot, get the right connection and steer it in. The perfect match winner. And of course, as you tweeted on Saturday night, zooming out further, a free transfer signed by the team under a transfer embargo, who could only sign frees and loans, who had stayed up on goal difference previously, who needed someone like this at the top of the pitch. Just unbelievable. Yeah,
as I said, when you look at the best signings in EFL history, or certainly since we've been doing the pod, Teemu Pukki, for his longevity, it's pretty hard to beat him in terms of free transfers. But for what McBurney has delivered in this season, in terms of not only the goals throughout the campaign, and a big reason why Hull have been able to defy the underlying numbers is because of the finishing exploits of McBurney and Gelhardt, but also to provide that performance, to be the man of the match, to score the goal at Wembley. You mentioned the build up to the goal, but also for the header, it all started with him getting the ball on the right wing and playing a massive crossfield switch to Ryan Giles, and then he ran into the box and was on the end of the cross to head on to the bar. So, just an incredible player. And it's also within the context of it coming a week or so after he was left out of the Scotland squad for the World Cup.
Yeah.
He seems to be a player that relishes proving people wrong, and I reckon if Scotland struggle in America in the summer, there are going to be a lot of Scotland fans wondering why he's at home, because he's proven he's a big game player. He's a proven match winner. He's a goal scorer. He's an intelligent player. I know that he hasn't done it for Scotland when he's worn a Scotland shirt, but this is a guy who is high in terms of what he's performing on the pitch and his motivation. He's going to be a Premier League player next season. And even though I expect Hull will be doing a lot of work in the transfer market this summer in order to try and prepare for the Premier League next season, he's not someone they're going to be trying to replace.
I heard that Ajun, the owner, and what an incredible few years of ownership it's been for him at Hull City. Turbulent in many ways, a roller coaster, an incredible story, incredibly entertaining in the not so good bits, and now with the glory. A man who, I think he tweeted afterwards, basically, he is encouraging Hull City to become like the Turkish nation's Premier League team, as if they have almost a representation of themselves in the Premier League, and that's going to be fascinating to see. Yeah, I saw on Twitter yesterday, and again, unverified, but it seemed like some of the people spotted with him at the game are like some of Turkey's other richest men, billionaires on top of billionaires on top of Illegally himself. And I want to mention the sporting director, Jared Dublin, here, who really hasn't, I don't think, been brought up in any conversations around Hull City this season. We focused on the playing staff, the manager, the owner, of course. But when you talk about a transfer embargo and you talk about having to be creative under restrictions, and you talk about knowing which players to keep, which players to try and move on, and try and work out as much as you can who to bring in under those conditions for a new manager who himself doesn't have a huge understanding of the game, I think we have to bring up the sporting director in Jared Dublin. He's a really interesting guy, someone I've been fortunate to meet on a couple of occasions over the last few years, with an amazing story. Jared's from the States, and he was, as far as I recall, living in San Francisco, and could have gone down many different career paths, not involving English football. But like so many of you listening and watching, like us as well, and not just those who are from this country, became obsessed with football, with English football, and with our pyramid. And like so many from across the globe, became so obsessed with it, wanted to learn everything about it, started listening to Not the Top 20 podcast, wanted to learn more and more about it, and basically made a huge career change so that he could be involved in this game, in this country. Moved over to Sheffield United, where he was an intern during the Chris Wilder years, learned, as you can imagine, an awful lot about football at that time. He was also at Stoke City for a time, and has been with Hull for the last 2 seasons. And wow, I mean, what an incredible job they did. Again, we focus on the transfer embargo. We focus on who they brought in terms of McBurney and Gelhardt on loan. But we should also remind ourselves that a lot of the teams that had success this year actually have done so with a group of players that are already at the club, that maybe hadn't been part of a great team, which they weren't last season, but growing together with developing understanding with each other, obviously a change of coach and a change of tactical style. I'm talking about, in the back line, players like Ryan Giles, who this time last year looked a shell of his former self and is now in the Premier League. Charlie Hughes, John Egan, Louis Coyle in the midfield, Crooks and Slater and guys like that. They really have. It's been an incredible progression, and it's not just about McBurney and Gelhardt, but it's also about those who have provided the backbone and an awful lot of running as part of this team. So yeah, we wanted to make sure that everyone gets their credit, and the Hull City fans as well. We and I, even more so than George, got you completely wrong from before the season started and pretty much throughout the whole season in terms of our predictions. I was worried pre-season, and the strength of feeling that I got, the pushback that I got, was surprising. But I do look back and I think, you guys felt something. I still don't really understand what Big Sergey was able to do in like 4 or 5 weeks of pre-season to make you guys, before a ball was kicked, before McBurney had signed, let's be clear, so confident that the team was going to be so much better than the team that stayed up on goal difference on final day last season. But you did feel it, and your feelings were correct. And the first half of the season was tremendous, sensational. Third, I think, after half of the season. The second half of the season, there was a drop-off. The goals were harder to come by. And maybe this team was changing its skin in order to get to crunch time, a much better defensive team than you had been in the first half of the season, and winning promotion necessarily, because you had to, in a different way in those playoffs. If you'd gone toe-to-toe with Borough, like the Hull from the first half of the season, you might have lost 4-1 like you did when you tried to go toe-to-toe with Borough. So I think the development and the understanding in that last portion of the season of how to get the most out of this group of players as a kind of Hull City 2.0, if you like, and as George said, getting through the season without conceding, getting through the playoffs rather without conceding, is just an absolutely unbelievable achievement. When it comes to next season in the Premier League, people are always very keen to go like, this team's gone up and they've got absolutely no chance of doing anything in the league above. And I think 2 things can be true here, while recognising that the Premier League is a completely different beast. Hull City know that themselves from previous forays, but I think they're joining a league that's even more of a different beast when you consider the quality of the kind of middle class of the Premier League. Teams like Bournemouth and Brentford and Brighton are all of a sudden twice as good as they were, or their equivalent teams were 10 years ago. It's a brute of a division, George. But equally, I think at this point, before summer recruitment, it's fairly foolish to make a strong prediction because teams have gone up. Even Sunderland, who weren't one of the strongest of the three teams that went up last season, and they finished in the top half. Like it's not linear, shall we say, what happens next.
It's not. And as you say, making predictions now is futile. It feels like with a promotion to the Premier League comes with a lot of money. And basically, this is a team that had a transfer embargo last summer where there have been rumours around financial issues, but the owner, Ashun Ilushali, has always been very clear in terms of rejecting any rumours about any kind of issues beyond maybe cash flow. But, they will look at Sunderland, and I guess that will be the blueprint for them. Sunderland spent a lot of money last summer. Will they be able to do that? To be clear as well, like it or not, if you spoke to any professional bettor, or anyone who kind of can rate teams, and this goes beyond just XG, like anyone who models teams based on anything else, I'm pretty sure Hull will be modelled as being the worst team that have been promoted out of the Championship for a long time, rightly or wrongly, whatever. Like that's just the case as it is, and that means that there's going to be a lot of work to do. What I will say is that a few weeks ago I'd have been pretty, vehemently a believer that Hull would struggle unless they were to completely revamp everything. But in the same way that I was kind of sweet on Sunderland's chances, I mean, I never would have predicted they would do what they've done, but like I thought that they were much better set for a Premier League campaign because of their style of play under Regis Lebris. It does feel like the style of play that Jurkovic has adopted in the last few weeks of the season is far, far more suited to being a small fish in the Premier League than what we'd seen before. Like these crazy end-to-end games that we saw early on in the campaign are done now, and this is now a team that don't really want the ball, that sit incredibly deep, that defend their box well, and have a few players like Charlie Hughes is one in particular where I'm delighted that he'll now be playing Premier League football next season, and I can't imagine we're going to see him back in the Championship anytime soon. If they get relegated next season, I think he will move. They have good players. They're going to have to get some more. But yeah, I'm not going to sit here now and say that there's no hope for them. We'll have to see how they recruit. And you mentioned Jared Dublin there. He's going to have a fun job this summer looking to bring in Premier League ready players.
Absolutely. Now, we'll finish with Borough, who have barely been mentioned because there's not that much to say. They barely laid a glove on Hull City. They had a second chance at winning promotion. Some have brought up that they really had three pretty good chances of winning promotion during the regular season when they were in the top two for a long period of time before finishing fifth in the playoffs initially, albeit under an absolute shitstorm and a narrow defeat to Southampton, and now here a narrow defeat to Hull City. But an odd team, George. I can't think that there have been too many teams I can think of like this where when you see them play well, forget stats, forget underlying numbers, when you see them playing well, you see an exceptional team for this level, incredibly well coached, incredibly slick, but not just slick for the sake of it, slick and penetrative and energetic and progressive and as many positive words as you can say outside of finishing their dinner. But we've also seen over the last 3 games and plenty in the 5-10 games previously that their floor, if you like, is pretty low. And whether that is player quality, that's being held up as a big issue for them. Their bench simply not being trusted, whether that is something to do with fitness or the overwork of their core dozen players, if you like. We have seen some really poor spells from them within games as well, and that sort of topsy-turvy nature within games, it's not really conducive to success. It's not a foundation for it.
Yeah, I think losing this game on Saturday will hurt Borough fans, maybe less than some playoff final defeats because they'd already, tasted defeat and thought they were out a couple of weeks before or a week or so before. Like big picture, I personally think that Borough not going up on Saturday may not be the worst thing for Middlesbrough. There's such a funny paradox because I think that Hellberg's Borough, like anyone who, like neutrals who don't follow this closely or don't look at data and other things or don't watch necessarily, will be baffled by, you know, who maybe watching this for the first time, will be baffled by the positivity around Hellberg, because they'll be like, hold on, he took over a Borough team that were third or fourth and they finished fifth. And then they've scored 1 goal in 3 playoff games. They're the only team to ever lose both playoff semi-finals. Sorry, lose the semi-finals and the final. Like, you know, what's going on? Like, why do you hate him so much? I'm a strong believer that not only do Middlesbrough need a complete overhaul of the playing squad, and I say that even as someone that thinks that at their best this season under Hellberg, they've been the best team in the league. That is testament to his coaching ability. I don't think this is a squad in any way built for the way that he wants to play with the profiles that he needs, or has anywhere near the quality that they need in the final third. I think they will and should cash in on Hayden Hackney, who has been the best player in the league this season, because as we so often say, selling players is good. And you look at, like I was watching Leeds West Ham yesterday, and you've got Crescencio Somerville playing against Leeds, getting relegated. You look at Jack Clark, who left Sunderland for Ipswich, and Sunderland are now in Europe, and in Ipswich have got relegated, and he was playing in the Championship this season. Like, selling your best players, especially at that level, is so important, especially if you don't have parachute payments as well. So Hackney, I'm sure, will go. They should definitely try and sell Morgan Whittaker, who, like, I kind of put on our WhatsApp group, it kind of feels like they're in hostage to Whittaker at the moment, because he is the only player in their squad who has shown consistently that he can provide that bit of magic in the final third. But the rest of his game is way off it. Like, his touch is bad. He can't really beat a man. He's a bit of a one-trick pony. Yes, he's got amazing qualities sometimes when he's confident to score that goal. We've seen him score so many times, but I just don't think he's good enough. So you're looking at, like, Morris is the one player who, to me, kind of encapsulates what Middlesbrough should be under Hellberg, like quality and energy and fight and spirit all in one kind of bundle package, which is what Hellball is all about. Malander came in January and has been brilliant, and if that is a signing of what they're going to be doing in the summer, then it's going to be important. But I'm really positive that if, you know, under Hellberg they can build something, and with, you know, with the money that they can bring in from those sales, they should have enough to go out and spend in the summer. And if they're recruiting specifically for what is a very specific style of play that's going to demand a certain physical quality, I think we're going to see a strong team. If they get it right this summer, I think we can see a really strong team.
So that brings the curtain down on the Championship season 25-26. It's been absolutely wild, by the way. I mean, it might be worth us just doing a recap episode, just remembering all the crazy stuff that's happened in the Championship this season. It's been an absolute joy and a pleasure, obviously, to cover it. And thank you for watching, for listening. Farewell to Hull City fans. I'm sure a lot of you will have enjoyed some of our coverage this season. A lot of you won't have. Good luck with Premier League coverage, because I think there are probably going to be some aspects that will wind you up quite a lot, but you'll be on Match of the Day and you probably won't be listening to Not the Top 20 podcast, but it's been a real pleasure, and let's hope we don't see each other again soon. Borough fans will be back, see what you've done this summer. We'll be back for the 1-24s, of course, ahead of the season. But George, our focus really, while we will be doing some NTT20 podcasts and coverage over the summer, in particular, really good transfer coverage over on ntt20.com. For you and I, it's England.
We're going stateside. We're flying out to America for the World Cup. And if you haven't listened to the England pod before, and you're going to be following the World Cup and you're going to be supporting England, please do go and check it out. We've been going now for a couple of years. Obviously, during the Euros, the episodes were put out on this feed. That won't be the case this summer. You have to go to the England pod, but it's more of the same. It's Ali, it's me, it's with our friend Dave Walker, talking about England, trying to provide the same kind of fan-led coverage, but also a bit more nuanced, a bit more less reactionary. And yeah, given we'll be out there, I'm sure we'll be telling you all about our escapades out in the States too.
Most of you are listening on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You're watching on YouTube. Anywhere you are consuming this, please right now search for the England Pod and subscribe. And if you've got 20 seconds spare, if you could give us a 5-star review as well, as we look to grow that alongside Not the Top 20 podcast. We love what we do. I hope it comes across that we put a lot of time and energy into it, making it as enjoyable as it can be. And we think this summer is going to be pretty special. So yeah, do join us on the journey. at the England Pod. Thank you so much to our sponsors, Sky Bet and the Sky Bet EFL Building Foundations Fund, for sponsoring the podcast throughout the season, and to you mainly for being part of it as well. Cheers and go well.